What's up, family? This is Tyler Long, and I'm joined by a wonderful co-host today.
Thank you so much. My name is Brittany Craner. I don't know if you need to know my last name, but there it is.
Come on. And we are here celebrating Pastor Mike Carlton's book, Who Am I? It's been out for a week now.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, it has been such a powerful week. Even hearing just some of the stories, some of the reviews, what this book has already done, even just a week in. And you know what? Maybe we start by maybe we should read some of those reviews.
I agree with you.
You want to read some of those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's
read some reviews.
Before I read these reviews, though, if you have not picked up a copy of this book, there is a QR code down in this corner right here that you can scan. I hope I got that corner right. That you can scan, and you can go pick up a copy today.
That's exciting.
I don't know what you're doing right now still looking at this screen, because if you're not clicking that thing and going and getting a copy, then you're missing out, right? But if you're going to do it later, I understand, and I'm glad you're still tuning in, because we're going to read some of these reviews just so you can see some of the fruit that this book is bringing. I'm going to start with this first one here. And this first one, it says, "The book left me speechless." And let me say, that's a hard task to accomplish. Pastor Mike writes from a place of vulnerability and relatability, and I felt like he was telling my story as well. I cried in the first chapter and then continued throughout the book. And if you've ever felt alone or like no one could ever understand how you feel and how you want to grow through the pain and find healing, this is the book you need. The study guide also helps that growth. And there are a few authors whose writing reached the spirit and soul of a person, and Pastor Mike is one of the few.
Man, that is such a great review and such an honest and so truthful to what the book is. And so I really enjoyed that. That was a great one.
And it is so true. Again, if you haven't picked up a copy, Scan that little QR code right there and go pick up a copy. The vulnerability, the level of just honesty that he reaches in this book is truly incredible and life-changing. I mean, it honestly is. Brittany, would you read another review?
You know what? I would love to.
Come on.
Let's see which one we've got going on here. Should I read this one here?
That's a great one.
Sounds great. So this one, a very honest account of Pastor Michael's abusive childhood and his path to emotional, spiritual victory. It takes much courage to share a story with such vulnerability. I also come from a home with an emotionally abusive mother, and who am I? Gave me a few more pieces to add to my own healing process. Man, I love that.
Wow.
I love that the honest vulnerability that Pastor Mike shares in this book it's helping people, you know. He's not the only one that's gone through some of this stuff. And so I think it's really cool that people are learning how to heal and in their own ways because of some of the things that Pastor Mike shares in this book. That's really cool.
Yes, it's so incredible to hear that Pastor Mike's courage was so infectious that it's now causing this person to have the courage to step out and realize that I did deal with some stuff and I can still find healing in it. Mm-hmm. So powerful. We've actually, I want to read maybe one or two more of these, but if you're tuning in right now, we've got a really powerful section that we're going to get into in just a little bit where we're actually going to ask Pastor Mike to come up. And last week, y'all sent in some questions, and there were some really good questions that you guys had about the book, the creation of the book, and maybe even just some best practices and how healing was brought about in his life. So stay tuned because we'll get to that in just a little bit. I do want to read, you know what? I'm going to read this next one.
You should.
Love this person right here because just straight and to the point, all right? Here's the review. Written straight from the heart. What else do you need?
That's it. That's all you need.
Just, boom. Man, a few words, but just hit it spot on there. Let's read one more, and then let's get into the Q&A. We'll welcome Pastor Mike up after this review, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So, Brittany.
I got this. You ready?
What do you got?
Ready? Amazing to read testimonies of others, inspiring to use this testimony as a mirror and inspection for my personal growth. So good. So good.
So, you know what? Let me encourage you, after you scan that QR code to go pick up a copy of this book, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you can read some of these reviews as well, and you can just see what this book is doing for people all around.
Yeah.
All around.
Highly recommended.
So, let's, should we get into the next?
We should.
Okay.
We should.
Would y'all help me? I want all the clap emojis. I want all the heart emojis. Would y'all help me welcome the author of Who Am I, Pastor Michael Carlton? Come on.
Yay.
What's up? Hey, guys. Man, I am so incredibly blessed by everybody that left reviews and been sharing with me how God's blessed them. I've gotten tagged in so much stuff online and people DMing me and messaging me, telling me just what God's been speaking to them. Thank you so much. And if you haven't, I'd love to hear from you. So, man, just shoot out a shout out, tag me in it, DM me on social media, or leave a review because it really means the world. You don't have to buy from Amazon to leave a review. You can rate and review it, whether you purchased it in person or you got it online. It's just, I really am blessed to hear from you. I want to hear from you. That's the whole purpose of the book, was just to help people, to hear from people. So I'm excited about that. So thank you.
So good. So last week, we were doing a live.
Come on.
And we were talking about if you've read the book and you have some questions for Pastor Mike, that they could send in some questions. And we've got some good ones lined up.
Let's hear them.
The first question for you was this. It says, I've been thinking about the challenge of healing and growing when the parent that hurt you does not acknowledge the pain they caused or dismiss you altogether.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
How would you heal from that? Or how would you counsel to heal from that?
You know, and I'm sorry that that's the case. I'm sorry that the person that hurts you doesn't respond to the hurt. And the unfortunate reality is that's most of the time in this world. Most people never admit to the wrongs that they've done to other people. Most people get defensive. Most people justify. And that's just our human nature. Our human nature always wants to justify what we've done, because it's easy for us to accuse other people, and we will never justify other people's actions that are negative. But if you'll find, naturally what you always do is justify, well, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
That wasn't my intent. And the reality is, it doesn't matter what your intent is. It does matter what the effect was. And your intent, if it has a negative effect, does cause pain. And that's what happens to a lot of people in life. So I'm sorry that happened. And that's the reality. The only way you can move forward is this. You've got to understand, one, your healing and forgiveness does not come from that person. Your healing and forgiveness comes from God carrying your burdens, and God restoring your heart, and God transforming your life. That's first and foremost. They are not your savior. They will never be the mender of your heart. It just won't ever happen. I could never find that from earthly people. Secondly, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to protect yourself to keep yourself from getting back into that place of harm. Because when you're dealing with unhealthy people, there is a cycle that they keep repeating in their life of unhealth if they don't ever want to change. Which means you have to create boundaries that you don't expose yourself to that unhealth. Sometimes you create boundaries where you just don't have certain conversations with that person.
Yeah.
You don't have certain environments you go with that person. You just create those boundaries. Now, some people don't care about your boundaries. And when people don't care about your boundaries, even though you set them very clearly, like, we're not going to talk about this, or I don't want to have that conversation, or I don't want you to speak to me or my family that way. When they keep crossing those boundaries, then you're going to have to make another decision on creating a different type of boundary. And so that's the unfortunate case, is you can't always have restoration in every relationship. Jesus says we work at peace as far as it depends on us, but it doesn't mean that everybody else wants to work at peace. And my therapist said something very clear to me. He says, Mike, you cannot have a relationship with a burning house, even if there's things inside you want to keep.
That's so good.
That's really good.
And if the house is burning and doesn't want to put out the flame, it will harm you if you keep trying to allow those boundaries to get pushed back. So we don't set boundaries out of bitterness. We don't set boundaries out of anger and resentment. We set boundaries out of health. And then if they don't want to have that restoration, or they don't want to respect those boundaries, what we do is we don't get bitter towards that person. What we do is we pray for that person. We have distance. We want blessings over that person, and we work on letting God mend our heart.
That's so good. And there's two things in that I really want to hit on. So just the point and the fact of, can you release forgiveness without having full restoration? I mean, that's powerful.
I used to feel very guilty about that.
Yeah.
I used to feel very guilty about that because I used to think, I'm a pastor. I should be able to have basically perfect relationships in every relationship I have. And and is there really forgiveness whenever I don't? And then I started realizing that's the key to free will. I can't make someone be what they don't want to be.
Yeah.
And what I can do is not change. I can change my response to that person, but I can't change their response to me. And so what you do to not have bitterness is you change your response to that person. When these thoughts come in your mind and when this hurt comes into your mind, are you filtering it through a healthy filter, or are you filtering it through an unhealthy, sinful filter? And that's the only thing you can have count. And that's the ability. And I think about it like this from God's eyes. How hard is it for God, you think, the perfect creator who knows he can't make you be what he wants you to be, even though he knows it's perfect? That's free will. And so if God doesn't make us be what he knows we need to be, we can't make other people be what we hope they could be, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, so good. Thank you for that. And you mentioned boundaries in there. And that's actually one of the questions that we got in this is how do you set healthy boundaries? So you talked a little bit about how you adhere to them and how you respect them, but what's the starting process for someone who says, I maybe need to do this, but how?
Well, what you got to do is, what is the trigger point of the pain? What is the cause of all the tension? What is the root of what's always happening? You've got to investigate that, right? Because it's not just the person, It's the action that you're really trying to address.
That's really good.
And what you're trying to do is identify what are the actions that lead to that tension. And then what you have to do is create some healthy boundaries with that, right? Some of that action may be the way they speak to you. Some of the action may be the way they speak to someone like your spouse. And when you're married, your spouse is the most important human relationship you have. Yeah. The two become one, and so you have to protect that. And it could also be the way they encroach into your personal time or don't care about your personal space or your personal time or calendar. So what you have to do is investigate what is the action that's causing the tension, and that's what you have to address. Don't address the person, address the problem. And what happens is too many times when we're trying to address a problem is we attack the person, right? We're like, you always do this, or you just caused me all this problem. You just caused drama. That's not fixed. That's not a boundary. That's an insult. What you have to say is when this happens and you paint the action, it causes this. And I don't want that in my life, or that's not healthy for our relationship. And if we need to have a healthy relationship, this can't be. And then what you can do if you want to take it one step further in health is there actions that I'm doing that cause tension with you that I need to stop doing? Are there things that I'm doing that's now crossing your boundaries of safe space that I need to be aware of so that we both can have a healthy, tension-free relationship? That's the only way you can get to that place of health.
That's so good. So good. Brittany, did you have...
I was going to say, I really like that you touched on, there's two sides of the coin, like there's the healthy, interaction with the person, pointing out the problem, but also to ask the person, what am I doing? What can I be doing better to salvage the relationship or to, pour life into the relationship? I really enjoyed that side of it. So
good. All right, I got a twofold question here. So the next question is, how long did it take you to write the book? But then there's a follow-up question of, how long did it take you to get the courage to write about that topic?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, we'll start with the courage, and then we'll get into the writing process. This was about a 3 to 4 year journey for me on this book. So I never, ever intended of writing this book. It was through a process of going through a healthy discovery in my life, through therapy and through spiritual fathers and mothers in my life, that I started identifying some wounds that were affecting me in my everyday life. And through that, I started noticing I would speak on these subjects in my sermons, because what I try to do is preach with where I'm at. I don't try to preach at people. I try to speak with people. And I would find a lot of this stuff, my healing, what I would discover through my healing, I started figuring spiritually so I started seeing a theme going through my life. And I remember about 1.5 years ago, I was actually writing a whole nother book. And I remember just feeling like God's just like, write chapter 1. And I wrote chapter 1, and I knew this was going to be my book. I knew it was almost like God just gave me a starting place. It took me about 8 months to write it after that, mainly because you're reliving a lot of things. And not only are you reliving a lot of things, but you're trying to investigate from a healthy way. It's one thing just to write down a bunch of negative stories. That's not the purpose of the book. The purpose of the book is not to look back at my past in a negative way. The purpose of my book is to show that despite pain, there can be a redemption, a growth, and there can be a purpose behind it. So I had to investigate what's God showing, what's God growing, what's the healthy way to look at this so that I can help other people not just look at their pain in a negative light, but look at their pain, and this sounds crazy, in a positive. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. I am the man I am because of what I've experienced and what I've gone through, and I have a testimony that I have now because of that. So that took a lot longer. When I wrote my first book, Bloom, I knocked that thing out quick because I wrote it almost like a sermon. I was going through the book of James. I have some personal stories, but it wasn't nearly as personal, so I had to really dig a lot more for this to get a lot more to that goal that I was trying to find.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So I want to touch on that just a little bit, because I feel like you wrote this with your heart. I mean, that's what we continue to hear in all of the reviews, and I know just after reading it, your vulnerability, your transparency, everything like that. So knowing who you are and the value that you desire to add and bring to people, what constitutes a win for you for this book?
Well, the win is a 100% people let go of the chains of their past and start moving towards health. And the reality is you don't even have to come from a childhood the way I did, but we all experience pain. We all experience disappointment in life. We all experience where life doesn't happen the way we wanted it to happen. And when we can start looking at that, not through the lens of this world, but through the lens of God, which means we can look at life with a hopeful anticipation that no matter what, God can work all things to good. When we could start looking at life like that, do you understand how many miracles you'll experience in your life? Do you understand how much that you will start seeing the impossible become possible in your life? If you cannot let the setbacks that your weakly flesh wants you to cower in fear to, but you can let the Spirit, which is strong, you're more than a conqueror, rise up, and you can learn lessons and you can grow from it, and you can get to a place of repentance where you were wrong and allow God to grow you. I'm telling you, the more you die to yourself, the more Christ can live in you, and the more Christ lives in you, the more you can start seeing heaven coming, his kingdom coming on this earth. You can start seeing heaven colliding with this earth. That's my goal. I just want people to start understanding pain has a purpose if we give it to God.
So good.
And that's my hope.
So good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Good.
Brittany, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. You read the book, you read the stories from your past, and there's some serious ones, there's some funny ones, but, were there any stories that almost made the book or that did, and then you pulled them out?
That's good.
Yeah, there are some stories. There are some stories that are a little too personal, mainly for the other parties. And that's kind of crazy because I do share some personal stories, but there are some where I'm trying to protect, right? I don't want to be into so far that realm. There's some stories that I found about my new biological, family that I haven't shared about because, that's a fresh relationship too, and I don't know all the details. So we're kind of, navigating through that. There's some stories that have come up since writing the book. I shared a story last week that I didn't remember until I wrote the book. It wasn't fully out of my memory, but I shared the story how, in my book I write out my mom, basically said I was an accident and I was a pill baby. That I remember. How my dad didn't claim me till I was 3. I forgot the story of my mom saying that she cried when she found out she was pregnant with my brother. There was a joke growing up when I got older because I never really threw fits or anything like that, but there was a joke growing up. They would call, they'd say Mike had all these tails, right? I had a really horrible nickname when I was a kid. My family's from Kentucky, so I'll say it with a southern accent, but they say Tudor. They call me Tudor, okay? So they say there's some Tudor tails. I should never said that online because it's out there now, but that was a nickname. And I was just a very... curious child. Yeah. So one time my mom, we had a walk-in pantry, and it locked on the outside for some reason. When I was 2 years old, she was in there, and I shut the door and locked her in it. And she said she was locked in it for like 2 hours. That's at least what she told me. So she was locked in there for like 2 hours. One time I locked her out of the car while she was getting gas when it was snowing outside. The cops had to come and unlock it, right? So I was a little bit, right? My grandma one time told me to go outside and get a switch when I was like 3 years old. And I come back in, I said, Grandma, I couldn't find a switch, but I have a rock. You could just throw it at me. So these were like some of the stories. So I was a little bit, so I was just a little, I was a little, so those were the stories that they would explain. And my mom said, she cried when she had my brother because she thought he'd be like me. I don't know if she said it in a humorous way, but it was something that stuck with me in not a humorous way, because you never want somebody to say they wept because they thought there was going to be 2 of you. And I did forget that story until I was communicating the other parts, and I remembered that, right? So there are things that pop up that I'm like, oh, that did happen, right? And it didn't happen one time. It happened multiple times. I heard her say that. So it was a story. So there are a few of those things that pop up that you just remember. That's kind of
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, and let me say this, after having read the book, what I appreciate so much is how you held true to the story, but you wrote about your parents still in such a tasteful way. Can you speak to how you were writing this and your heart behind, I need to tell my story. It's not to incriminate, but I have a right to my story.
Yeah, there's a couple things you got to understand. One, no one's perfect, and we understand that. Number two, they had extremely painful childhoods, too. And they went through a lot. So they're navigating their adult life differently than what I've had to navigate. They didn't grow up with the type of relationship with Jesus I did. It wasn't until my mom and dad didn't really get into church until I was going into 5th, 6th grade. We dabbled periodically. So they had a whole different faith journey. So they were responding to pain all they knew how to. They didn't know any better. They didn't know any different. Doesn't mean what they did to me was right. Doesn't mean what they did to me did not hurt and cause pain. Remember, it doesn't mean what your intentions were. It doesn't matter what your effects are. But I can also look at it with grace in that side, right? My therapist does get on to me and say, Mike, don't justify. Your feelings are valid. So you do need to understand your feelings are valid, because sometimes we will justify, well, I just know they're at this person. And so we try to downplay how we feel. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I am trying to understand that they are navigating. So what I'm trying to do, and the point of the whole book was not to look back negatively at my past, but to look back at my past as a learning moment to help other people learn so they don't look back negatively at their past and move forward. Now, it is my story. And this did happen to me. And none of them were fabricated. And so with that, you do have the right to share your story in a healthy way and try to navigate it that way.
Yeah, it's really good. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Okay, so if you were able to go back and speak to younger Mike, who was going through all the things, what would you say to him?
You weren't an accident, and you're good enough, and you don't have to prove that you're good enough to anybody else, because you were created real with a purpose. You were chosen.
Come on.
That's good.
So good.
I'm like,
don't.
my eyes
if
are
you do it,
misty.
I'm going to do it. You can't do it. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And let me just say, that is the exact message that is coming through this book, in any and all walks of life, for any and all different areas of pain. It's that message. That message is actually one that you are sharing even outside of the book. And you've got a workbook, you've got a sermon series. Can you talk a little bit about some of the resources?
Yeah, we've got a
offering?
workbook out right now. We've got a sermon series out. And actually, and this isn't publicly announced, we're announcing it this weekend.
Come on.
We've got a YouVersion Bible plan out. So if you type in Who Am I on the YouVersion Bible plans, you're going to find me on there with one of the Devos. So there's a YouVersion Bible plan. We have the study guide, the book, but I'm also in a series that we're in right now called Who Am I? And what I tried to do is preach the theme of the book without preaching the book. Because I want you to be able to read the book and go, okay, I read the book and I still got more to it. So I'm just adding to it with the sermon series. So it's trying to be an add-on, not just a replica of what the book is. So that's the whole point of it. So if you missed any of them, go on the Bloom Church page and check out the YouTube. We're week 2 in. We're finishing up next week with week 3, which I think is going to be the best one yet. I'm really believing it. We're going to end with a really important thing. We're talking about inheritance, which I think is going to be powerful. And again, it's on Amazon. Please rate and review it if you haven't. Please go out and share. Post on social media. Tag me in it, Michael S. Carlton. I'm on all of the sites, Michael S. Carlton. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Michael S. Carlton. You can find me there. If you take a picture with it, tag me in it. I'd love to hear what God's speaking in and through you.
Come on.
and it's on Amazon. So if you don't have a copy yet, you pick it up there. We also have an Audible coming out too on there. So there's an Audible version of it coming out also. So just be looking out. A lot of great things.
Lots of great things.
Yeah.
You can hit that QR code.
But if you're watching on your phone, you'll just need to go to the Amazon.
That's yeah.
Who am I, Michael S. Carlton?
I know. I just really like doing the thing. Now, if you're a pastor watching, so you are fully equipped and you are ready to hit the road with this.
Yes, I've got several churches I'll be going to, and so already got me coming in next year that we're going to be speaking at. So I'm excited about it. And if you love for me to go to your church, you can just go connect@bloomhere.org, connect@bloomhere.org. That's our email. Just send out a request, and we'll see if it can fit my schedule. I'd love to come and share my heart with your family. So it'd be great.
Come on. And let me just say, the freedom that is coming from this. So we at Bloom have been in this sermon series for 2 weeks now. Yesterday, we just had our second week of this. And we have seen God move in such miraculous ways. We've had 81. Is that the 81 people give their heart to Jesus?
Come on. 81 people. That's awesome. God's good.
Massive.
Come on.
That's huge.
God's good.
So let me just use that as God is using Mike. God is using Mike's story in such powerful ways. And let me just say, if I had a church, I would bring you there. So come on. Okay. Is there anything that was left unsaid in the book that after writing it, you just feel like, I want to say this to the people?
No, I think the book's really, it's got a good beginning and end. I will say this, I am writing a third book.
Come on.
And it will be kind of a sequel, and the title is tentatively right now, Get Your Mind Right, Get Your Life Right. And so I'm building upon getting yourself in a place of health and getting your thoughts and your spirit completely aligned with God's going to bring a lot more into your life. And so I've got that fully outlined. I'm starting to write that process, and I think it's going to almost be a sequel to the book. That's kind of the way I kind of envisioned it. What's that next step to take after you go through the journey of who am I? What's beyond that? And that's kind of what I'm working on right now to help people go to that next level beyond just what they're going to experience already, going to the next level with who am I? Because there's more levels to go with God, and we're going to keep going, right? Paul said we ain't reached perfection, we're striving for it, and I'm ready for you guys to keep striving and running that race.
You know, let me just say, I'm glad you said that, because when we were first asking about how long it took you to write this book, you said that you were working on a book, and then you that one put to the side. So what happened to that one too? Can we expect more in the future?
Yeah, that one is, the one I did put to the side is almost done. It's more of a leadership book and growth book on church growth. So these last two books are definitely more general audience books, not just tailored to one type of niche market. So I do have that one. It'll probably release too at some point.
Love it. Love it. So exciting. And all just reasons to stay tuned. Just stay involved. Keep looking for updates for all the things. Make sure you pick up a copy. Rate, review it. If you're a pastor, come on. What are you doing if you're not already emailing and ask? What is the email? What's the email that they can send?
Connect@bloomhere.org.
Connect@bloomhere. What are you doing if you're not already emailing? And getting Pastor Mike to come to your church with this powerful, powerful message. All right, anything in closing?
Hey, I just love you guys. I'm so honored. I'm telling you right now, I'm overwhelmed by all of the love I've been getting, and I enjoy signing your book. So if you're here on a Sunday, you come find me. I'll sign your book. I spent a lot of time Sunday signing books, and I love doing it. So I'd love to say hi, hug your neck, and sign your book. So you want to be here this Sunday, 8:30, 10, 11:30.
All right. Here we are, signing off.
Yep.
Come on.
Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. I guess it was after lunchtime, wasn't it?
After
it was a little bit out. Yeah. We're your dinner mint. Your
dinner
dessert.
mint is
your lunch dessert. All right.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.